ruling universities. Okay, so all nerds, yay, all right. So, all right, here it is. I am a Christian. I am a scientist. And I'm also a creationist. Now, if you listen to the world, they'll tell you, I don't exist. Well, there's no such thing. You can't possibly be a scientist and be all that. You know what? Not only do we exist, there's a lot of us out there. And this may come as a surprise, but don't believe everything you see on TV or read on the internet. That's a good piece of advice to take, because you're going to get fed a lot of nonsense. Satan wants you to be fed a lot of nonsense. He wants you to believe it. See, Satan doesn't care what you believe as long as it's not God's truth. So if you can get lost in anything else, he doesn't care. He just doesn't want you to know God's truth. All right. And the video is not working at the moment. Can we click on it, see if that'll get it to work?
There it goes.
Okay. Here we have, this is an invisible rope. All right. We're putting down an invisible rope on a sidewalk in a park. Okay. Now there's an accomplice going over, showing everybody else what they need to do to get over the invisible rope. Okay, so I come upon the invisible rope, so I guess I better step over it too. All right, so we step over the invisible rope. Now, let's see. I don't know if I can make it over that invisible rope, so maybe I just better go around it, because, you know, I might wind up tripping over it. Or, let's see here. I'm not sure I can manage getting over that rope. So can I maybe be excused and go through the invisible rope? So I have to negotiate my ability of not going over the invisible rope. And then of course then, well, we better step over the invisible rope again. And we'll need to wait for other people to step over the invisible rope. Okay, and then we'll tell our kids, okay, be sure to step over the invisible rope. Everybody steps over. Or, well, I'm not sure I can manage getting over that invisible rope, so it's probably better I'll just go the other way. And let me see. Not sure I can make over the invisible rope. Let me talk here just a second. How is it you get over this invisible rope? What do I need to do? Okay. Do I need to just step over it? All right, there we go. Very good. Okay. So, what have we seen? What's this illustrating? Would you step over the invisible rope? You know what? I'll bet most of you would. Why? Because everyone else is doing it. Right? Why did they step over it? Did they really believe there's a rope there? But they stepped over it anyway. Why? Because everyone else was. Alright, everyone else is, I'll step over it too. There's no rope, but I'll still step over it. See, and that's the world you live in. People do what everyone else does. That also becomes a problem, because what if everyone else is doing things that, shall we say, they shouldn't be doing? What if everyone else is accepting and believing things they shouldn't be accepting and believing? But what happens is people just accept and believe it anyway. Well, okay, everyone else is. There we go. Okay. For me personally, a godless worldview and a godless earth history make no sense. Now, you're getting told the opposite. You listen to the news, you read on the internet, everybody blasting Christianity, everybody blasting those stupid people who believe in a God. But the truth of the matter is, it makes no sense to not have God in the picture. If you have a worldview that doesn't include God, if you have an earth history that doesn't include God, to me it makes no sense. I can't fathom how that works. In fact, I'll go one step farther and say that Christianity is the only view that offers a personal relationship with your Creator. You can look at all the other, quote, religions out there. They do not offer a personal relationship with your Creator. In fact, most of them don't offer a relationship at all. In fact, many of them, they can't even tell you who the Creator is. Well, we came about somehow. We don't know. So Christianity is the only one that offers a personal relationship with your Creator. To me, already, you've scored big time. If it's the only one that can offer that kind of personal relationship, why would I look anywhere else? Why would I even consider anywhere else? What would be the point? Right? Christianity also is the only one that offers an explanation for both good and evil. Oh, you're going to get hit with that a lot. How many of you plan on going to college? Yeah. One of the things you're going to get hit with constantly is, well, how could a loving God allow that? How could a loving God allow such evil? Well, first off, to understand evil, that means it has to be by comparison. So you recognize it has to be a good. But how do you know what good is? What's your moral indicator of good and evil? Without a moral indicator of good and evil, there can't be evil and there can't be good. A moral indicator means there has to be some moral authority. And a moral authority can only ultimately be the moral lawgiver himself. That's philosophy 101. But yet, in college, you're going to constantly be hit with the question of, well, evil proves there's no God. No, evil proves there must be a God. Otherwise, how would you know it's evil? Right? Christianity is the only one that offers any hope. You think about that a second. You think about that a second. It's the only one that offers any hope. I can belong to some Eastern religion, mysticism. What's the hope in that? Maybe I'll get reincarnated as a cow? Yeah, that sounds real hopeful. Maybe I'll get reincarnated as a cockroach. And my best I can hope for is I'll become part of the neutral, personalist, ether karma. Whoopee, yeah, I'm really hoping for that. Even Islam can't promise you a hope. I've talked to many Muslims in my life, and one of the things that constantly they even acknowledge is, we don't know if Allah will save us or not. We don't know what He will do with us. There's not much hope there. But Christianity offers a distinct hope. Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. You come through me to the Father, and I promise you, there will be hope. Christianity is the only one that offers a real God. You think about what God could be and what God would have to be. No other worldview offers you a real God. They offer you fake gods. They offer you gods. That's not much of a God. That's not much of a creator. Christianity is the only one that offers a God that this is the real God. This is what you would expect God to be. Why did Christ come and be born in a small town to poor people in a very low economic setting? And who came to visit him his first night? Shepherds, the low end of the economic totem pole. He wasn't born in a castle. He wasn't born to rich people. Why not? Because, see, that was God's way of showing, I reach out to everybody. That's a real God. It's a real God. All the other gods, they don't reach out to everybody. Those are fake gods. The Bible explains where we came from. It's really the only one that gives you a rational explanation where we came from. All other explanations, we're going to see in just a moment, all other explanations are pretty much irrational. But they're desperate explanations because we don't want to accept what the Bible says. So the Bible's the only book that gives you an explanation of where you came from. It's also the one that gives you a reason why you're here. And you know, where you came from very much directly impacts your understanding of why you're here. See, if I think I'm here because of a cosmic accident, then why am I here? I don't have a reason to be here, because cosmic accidents have no purpose. They have no reason, therefore there is no why. So understanding where I came from explains to me why I'm here, and if I know why I'm here, I know my purpose in life. What causes students to take guns and walk into schools and kill other students? Because they don't understand where they came from, they don't know why they're here, and they don't have any purpose in life. You can pass all the laws you want. You can have all the legislation you want. It won't solve anything. Because it's not about laws, it's about the heart. It's about understanding where you came from, why you're here, and what your purpose is for why you're here. And the Bible gives answers to those. And then the Bible also gives a big answer, and that is where you're going. And not just where you're going at the end of your life. Where are you going this afternoon? Where are you going tomorrow? Where are you going next week? Where are you going next year? Where are you going in 10 years? You know, you're at a stage of your life that in the next 10 years you're going to make some of the most major decisions you're ever going to make. And they're going to impact the rest of your life. And we old people can look back on that and testify and say, wow, I wish I would have known better some things when I was making those decisions. But what it comes down to is understanding where you're going. If you don't know why you're here, you don't know where you're going. And so what kind of decisions are you going to make of where you're going? Well, I don't know where I came from. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what my purpose is, so I don't know that I'm going anywhere. And if I'm not going anywhere, then what happens? I don't go anywhere. And I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking about emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I'm not going anywhere. And then desperation begins to come in. Thoughts of suicide, thoughts of drug use, thoughts of other things that somehow are going to try to dampen, somehow suppress the turmoil I'm in because I don't know where I'm going. But I don't know where I'm going because I don't know where I came from. The Bible is the answer to all of those questions. See, for most Christians, the Bible is like a software license. You don't read it. You just scroll down and hit I agree. I want to tell you with the most sincere love I can tell you, read the Bible over and over and over again. I've been reading the Bible my whole life, and I still am astounded at what it says. Did that just get added? When was that in there? I don't remember that before. I've read Romans 20 times. I've read Hebrews 20 times. Where did that come from? Because God reveals constantly. But He won't reveal if you don't read it. Don't just hit I agree. Know what you're agreeing to. Every chapter in the Bible is interconnected with the rest of the Bible. You'll be told the Bible was written by a bunch of old men way back when, over a long period of time. But if that's really the case, if God wasn't involved, how would you get such interconnectivity? Starting from the book of Genesis, going all the way through the Revelation. How would you get such interconnectivity? If somebody wrote something 2,000 years ago, and you're writing something today, how's there going to be such connection? But what we see in the Bible is that every chapter is connected with the rest of the Bible. And so what part of the Bible can I leave out and not affect other parts of the Bible? What can I do? How can I do that? And the answer is you can't do that. Because you see such intense interconnectivity of one chapter with the next chapter with the next chapter. Because you see, this is not a result of man's efforts. This is a result of God being involved in the writing of the whole thing. You know where this was published? This was published in National Geographic. So this isn't just some Christian thing that we made up. National Geographic themselves recognize tremendous interconnectivity of each chapter of the Bible with the rest of the Bible. You're going to be told a lot. Well, you got science and you got the Bible. You got to choose because you can't have both. That's another lie you're going to be told. It is a flat-out lie. It's not true. It's not a matter of either or. It's not a matter of either or. To really understand that the best, we have to recognize again the world we live in. Okay? I get told and hear this a lot, no Christian can be a scientist, no scientist can be a creationist. You're an idiot if you don't believe evolution. Biology only makes sense in light of evolution. Genesis is a bunch of nonsense, etc., etc., etc. And that's the world wanting you to think that it's either the Bible or science. Can't be both. Of course, then we get what my colleagues and I call the face. And that is, how in the world can you claim to be a scientist and not believe in this stuff? Not believe in evolution? For me, I say very easily. And so, this again is Satan's attempt to get you to question what you believe. Well, I don't want to be called an idiot. I don't want to be looked at as a dummy, so I guess maybe I better not accept this. Maybe I better be quiet about it. That's just, again, Satan wants you to step over the invisible rope and be like everybody else. And you need to start making up your mind right now between you and God. Am I going to step over the invisible rope like everybody else, or am I going to stop and say, no, it's not there. I'm not going to step over it. It doesn't really exist. Okay. We have to understand also, what else would a fallen world say? Would a fallen world say, oh yeah, we're going to believe all the evidence out there? Of course not. Do you remember the story? Jesus rose Lazarus from the dead, right? You remember that story? Okay. Now, a few days later, Lazarus is walking along the streets in Jerusalem, and the religious leaders that are so critical of Christ, that hate Christ so much, they see Lazarus walking on the streets. Here is proof right here that Jesus has power over the dead, power over the grave. Proof right here, evidence of the claims of Jesus of divinity. Do they say, oh, let me look at this evidence. Let's consider this. Maybe Jesus is who he said he was. Remember what they actually did? They said, let's kill both Jesus and Lazarus. See, they didn't care what the evidence was. The world will tell you, oh, we want evidence. No, they don't. The world doesn't want evidence. It wants to kill the evidence and bury it because it doesn't want to be bothered with something that doesn't conform to stepping over the invisible rope. So, it's not a matter of, well, raise your hand, do you believe the Bible, do you believe Christianity, do you believe creation, yes or no, popular vote wins. Jesus said, if the world hates you, remember it hated me first. He also said, wide is the gate, and many on it that go to destruction. See, many on it are going to step over the invisible rope. Why? Because it's what everyone else is doing. Just going to follow along. All right? What is science? We want to offer a guess. What is science? Anybody in a science class? Want to offer an answer? What is science?
Making and testing theories.
Science is a tool. Making and testing theories. It's a tool. It's a process we use to try to understand everything around us, the world around us, God's creation. And as that tool, as part of that tool, we will make a hypothesis or a theory. We'll develop tests to see what is an explanation for gravity, what's an explanation for light, what's an explanation for diseases. And in doing so, then the idea is to gain an understanding. So science is a tool. Now, when you hear science says the Bible's wrong, does science really say anything? Because science is a tool. That'd be like your hammer talking to you. That'd be a little freaky. Right? So when you hear science says the Bible's wrong, what's that really mean? What's that really mean? It means that the interpretation of some sciences is that the Bible's wrong. Not too far from where I live is an individual named Lawrence Krauss, and we'll talk about him in just a second. He's a very, very outspoken. In fact, in the United States at the moment, he's one of the most outspoken atheists there is. And he will always rebuttal, oh, well, I don't believe all of that stuff because I have science. I have science. Like, Lawrence, you don't even remember what science is. But what I so want to tell you is, no, you don't, Lawrence. You have an interpretation based upon a brain you think used to belong to a monkey. And even Charles Darwin said, I don't know if we can trust such a brain. So it's an interpretation of science that some people will give you, but they're the ones that usually make the news. So it's not a matter of science versus the Bible, because it's interpretation of humans versus the Bible. In other words, do you jump over the invisible rope or not? The interpretation tells you to go ahead and jump over the invisible rope. It's not really there, but you can jump over it anyway. Okay. Lawrence Krauss, every atom in your body came from a star that exploded. So forget Jesus. Stars died so that you could be here today. And this is cheered and applauded. Oh, this is so profound. This is so wonderful. No, it's not. It's just plain ignorant. It's just plain ignorant. Let me explain to you why. Okay? There's all kinds of explanations of how life started itself. Essentially, life created itself. They're all nonsense. They're all utter nonsense. You get off into college, you take a biology class, I guarantee you they'll be teaching you this stuff, and they won't tell you how much nonsense it is. James Tour. You can go on YouTube and watch his lectures. In fact, I would encourage you to do that. James Tour is one of the world's foremost synthetic chemists. If anybody would know how an exploded star formed you, he would know, because that's his specialty. Far more than Lawrence Krauss's specialty. Way more. He would know. And in fact, what's he say? Those who think scientists understand the prebiotic chemistry are wholly misinformed. Nobody understands. So when Lawrence Krauss says, you came from an exploded star, what he's really saying is, I'm just making it up because I don't want there to be a God, so you had to come from somewhere else. It's not science. It shouldn't be applauded as science. It ought to be ridiculed as the nonsense that it is. In fact, what is science is what's called the law of biogenesis. Law of biogenesis is life only comes from life. You know what that is? That's creation. They say creation is not scientific. Right here. Creation is a scientific law. Life only comes from, it doesn't come from exploding stars, it comes from life. And the ultimate life giver was the Creator himself. So in the future, and you may see this in your lifetime, in the future when they take all the man-made knowledge and all the understanding of chemistry and all the understanding of biology and put it all together and they finally synthesize life in the laboratory, what will it have proven? What you'll be told it proves is, see, life didn't need intelligence to begin with. But what it really proved is it proves life needed an enormous amount of intelligence to be put together. It'll prove the very opposite of what the world will tell you that it shows. Okay. Now we know the popular view, of course, is evolution. And when we say evolution, for example, if we're talking about, this is where they're saying you came from. You know, the questions the Bible answers, where you came from, why you're here, what your purpose is, where you're going. Well, this is what the world's going to offer you. This is where you came from. You came from this. Which, of course, is in direct contrast to what the Bible says, because the Bible says that God created you out of dirt, created woman from man's rib, and created you in God's image. See, this representation has nothing about God's image. You're just another animal. And as another animal, you might as well behave as an animal. And if you watch the evening news, you see that many people take that seriously. They behave as another animal. Let's look just real quickly at what's called mitochondrial leave. Okay, in your cells in the body, which by the way, you have billions of cells in your body. In the cells in your body, you have DNA in the chromosomes, which is the nucleus, which also have small pieces in the cells also called mitochondria. And mitochondria have a separate piece of DNA. Small, they have a separate piece of DNA. And like any DNA, we can sequence it. And we can determine what the DNA sequence is. Mitochondria is about 16,000 nucleotides, one of those about 16,000 letters. okay, is subject to mutation like any piece of DNA is. In other words, those letters can change, just randomly change. That happens. It's passed from female to her children. So you young ladies, your mitochondria you got from your mother, you're going to pass it on to your children. Okay, so the way it would work is we have a female here, she passes to her children, the males don't pass it on, only the females. But what that means is we can follow a maternal lineage backwards through the mitochondria. So we can determine your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, your great-great-grandmother, back and back and back through the mitochondrial DNA. In 1987, which I know is ancient history, but in 1987 there was a study done where they determined, you know, when we go back far enough in grandmother, great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother, lo and behold, all humans intersect at one woman. So here we have genetic evidence we all came from one woman. Now, the publishers of this article weren't saying she was the only woman, they're just saying she's the only woman whose mitochondrial DNA has survived. But they have no proof genetically that there were other women. They just assumed there were, because if there were only one woman, wow, that's way too biblical. So they just reject that out of hand. But they did call her Eve. In fact, they called her mitochondrial DNA Eve. Which is amusing because now that allows us to go into public universities and talk about Eve because it's in the scientific literature. All right. But what they did was they determined, well, Eve, this mitochondrial Eve lived 150,000 years ago. And so for you biblical creationists that don't think he lived that long ago, that would seem to be a problem. But here's what they did. They took the mutation rate of the mitochondria. In other words, how do we know how far back this goes? We can follow mutations. Just how much change has occurred from generation to generation. So they took the mutation rate of the human. But they also added in what I call an evolutionary fudge factor. That fudge factor was they included chimpanzee mitochondrial DNA also. Why? Because if they didn't, they wouldn't get this number. To get this number, they had to include chimpanzee mitochondrial DNA. But now, what we'll call the rest of the story, okay, when we get rid of the mitochondrial DNA of the chimpanzee and just strictly go with human, because that's what we're really talking about, just human lineage, all of a sudden we find that Eve lived 7,500 years ago. And they knew that. That's why they put the chimpanzee DNA in this study, because they weren't about to admit that Eve only lived 7,500 years ago. But here you have genetic evidence of the Eve of the Bible, just 7,500 years ago. Right? In Science Magazine in 1998, Science Magazine is not creation friendly by any way, in any form, but they admitted, they said using the new clock, as in leaving out the chimpanzee DNA. If we use that clock, Eve's only 6,000 years old. And they go on in the rest of the article to explain how that's unacceptable. So obviously we can't have that. That's not going to work. And they call that science. Right? A friend of mine published in 2007 in Nucleic Acid Research a consensus sequence. In other words, what he thinks is the original Eve mitochondrial DNA sequence to 99.99% accuracy. In other words, we're that close to this is what Eve's mitochondrial DNA looked like. And when we use that, we can develop a tree of this is the human tree. We're the ones here on the far ends. This is contemporary. And then, of course, like any genetic lineage, it goes back. Your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, back. What we find then when we take all known human mitochondrial DNA and make a tree like this, there's Eve. Yes, we're that good. But you know what? There's 3 other women also. Do you know who those women are? Anyone want to guess? Noah's daughter-in-laws. Because remember, Noah's wife's mitochondrial DNA would have stopped because she only had sons. The daughter-in-law's DNA moved on. Genetic confirmation of Noah and his family. They tell you, oh, there's no scientific evidence for the flood. Right here, genetic confirmation, right there. We can pick out the daughter-in-laws. If there wasn't a flood that would have destroyed all of life except them, we wouldn't be able to do that. We have distinct breakpoints. Yes, we're that good. Now, the world obviously wants to take and expand all this and say, oh, this was tens and hundreds of thousands of years ago, because they put in those evolutionary fudge factors. But when you take those out, this is just a few thousand years ago. Perfect genetic confirmation for what the Bible tells us. Published in 2004 in the journal Nature, and Nature is anti-creation. I mean, they want nothing to do with creationists, and yet they admitted in an article that our ancestors lived only about 3000 BC. Oh, that sounds too biblical. People really got upset about publishing that. Oh, that's way too biblical. So what we currently know about human genetics actually confirms the Bible history. This is one of the reasons where I started out that what I understand to say that world history is godless makes no sense, because then I can't explain any of this. Okay, dinosaurs in the Bible. All right. Dinosaurs, again, you go to college, even not going to college, you've probably already been told this. Dinosaurs disprove the Bible. Because of dinosaurs, we can hit the delete button and just get rid of that stupid thing. Okay, some people argue, well, you don't see dinosaur in the Bible. Well, first off, you have to recognize the word dinosaur wasn't even invented until 1841. Okay, so why would you expect to see it in early versions of the Bible? Because the word didn't even exist. And later versions, unfortunately, have just followed a pattern. They're not going to try to introduce some term now because they're too busy jumping over the invisible road. But there is a Hebrew word called tanian. It is the Hebrew word for monster. It appears 14 times in the Old Testament. And it's often translated as dragon. Oh, dragons didn't live. Well, maybe not the flying, fire-breathing, but that's not necessarily what it's talking about. Okay? It's often translated as sea monster, or just simply monster, or great serpent. But it could just as easily be translated Dinus. In fact, the book of Job, in chapter 40, talks about a creature called Behemoth. The strength is in his loins. He has powerful belly muscles. He has tail like a cedar, bones of bronze. First among God's works. Can anyone trap it? You go to the footnotes and try to say things like hippopotamus or elephant, none of which fit the descriptions. When it says first among the ways of God, God is talking to Job, talking about how great the stuff is he created. He'd be pointing to not some little puny creature like an elephant. He'd be pointing to one of those massive monsters we know used to live. But for Job to understand what he's talking about, Job would have had to know. Because in fact, God said, you can go see down the Jordan, and there he is. They were still there. Then, of course, you get the big joke, well, there was no room for dinosaurs on the ark. I mean, come on, ho, ho, ho. That's just, only stupid people believe that. Well, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but one thing you have to recognize is there's a limit how big eggs can be. The biggest dinosaur egg ever found is 12 inches. See, the chick or the hatchling in the egg has to breathe from the air. And the only way to do that is the shell has to allow air to penetrate in. If you get the shell much bigger than a foot, it starts getting so thick the air won't penetrate in and the hatchling will suffocate. So even the largest of all dinosaurs started out about that big. You know, if Noah had a bunch of those, they wouldn't take up any room at all. Plus, why would you get the great big ones? Not only are they going to require more care and more food, but they're probably past their reproductive prime. You would want the young ones that are going to be able to reproduce for their whole life once they get off the ark. See, so it's not a matter of there's no room, it's a matter of you're not thinking scientifically. You put the small ones on, they take very little room, they eat very little, but yet they serve perfectly what you need. See how a little bit of thought suddenly just dismantles most of these so-called unanswerable questions? In fact, I don't know how many times in my life I've been challenged with a question that was supposedly unanswerable because I stumped my 5th grade Sunday school teacher. So that made it unanswerable. And that's nothing against the 5th grade Sunday school teacher, it's just showing that just because you stump one person doesn't mean there's not an answer. And I answered the question. Sometimes they're thankful, but you know what the most common reaction is? They get angry. See, because now I've removed the fig leaf and they stand naked before God. No longer have that excuse of why they were denying God, because I just took it away from them. It's a fearful thing to stand naked before God. All right. In 2005, a report was published again in the journal Science where they had extracted some pliable, squishy tissue from the femur of a T-Rex. Now, this T-Rex fossil is supposed to be over 60 million years old, and it's still got squishy tissue in it. Since then, they've also isolated squishy, pliable blood vessels that contain many proteins in fossils that are supposed to be 70, 80, 90 million years old. Still have tissue, still have proteins. The Creation Research Society that I work for, we started a project we call iDino. And as that, we dug up, among other fossils, we dug up a huge Triceratops horn and found tissue. In fact, here's a picture of it on the American Laboratory. See, creationists don't do science. Here is our tissue on a secular publication, American Laboratory. This is squishy, it's pliable. These little things right here, those are bone cells. Those are dinosaur cells, still intact. We published in ATC Histochemica. These are, again, bone cells. See if this works. Is somebody back there? One of the problems of running videos, but I want you to see this. It may or may not work. Okay, it doesn't like my video. I'm sorry about that. What this is going to show you is this is a dinosaur fossil. It's going to show in my laboratory we peeled tissue off. Okay. And then we go on to the next one. If it's good, it's not going to let me advance. Okay, you're going to have to click cancel. It's not letting me click cancel. Okay, there we go. Whoops. All right. I'll start all over again. Technology is so wonderful. And here's another video that I was going to show you. This is what the tissue looked like after we pulled it off of the bone. It looks like a piece of steak. You can throw it on the grill and eat it. Have a dinosaur burger. Okay, so when we get a chance, we'll just go on to the next one. All right, can I go? No, I can't go. They were good videos. While we're waiting, does anybody have a question? I think everybody say, okay, wait, back up. Explain that again. What are you talking about? What's going on? Okay. So my challenge is that the presence of this tissue, the presence of the proteins in the tissue, the presence of the cells in the tissue, is a direct challenge to the claims that these fossils are 70, 80, 100 million years of age. Okay, design. This is a quote from Francis Crick. If you've studied any in biology, you may recognize Francis Crick and James Watson were the two that first determined the chemical structure of DNA. But Francis Crick was an atheist. So as an atheist, of course, he's going to be searching for other answers than what I would say is the scientific answer. And as part of that, look at what he says. Biologists must constantly keep in mind that what they're seeing is not design. In other words, biologists have to constantly keep making sure they step over the invisible rope even if it's not there. And what's that tell you? What that tells you is the presence of design in biology is so clear that if they don't keep reminding themselves that it wasn't designed, they may actually start thinking it was. In other words, you may forget the rope is there that you're supposed to step over even though it's invisible. See, scientists step over the invisible rope just as much as anyone else. Okay? Anymore, the approach is, well, life's not that big a deal. Life can just occur all the time anywhere, so it's no big deal that there's life. That's, again, a statement of ignorance. Because life is incredibly sophisticated. In 2005, an article in Cell Biology tried to claim that systems are overly complex, and that itself is an example of poor design. Isn't it interesting how things would be overly complex? I don't know how you could ever have some random process, some accident make something overly complex. And generally in biology, and I can say this through my career spanning several decades, what we've seen is what we thought was overly complex actually is even more complex, and there's a reason. In the cell, and if you've taken biology, you recognize this a little bit. In the cell, you have DNA in the chromosomes, in the nucleus. You have all kinds of organelles like the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi body and the mitochondria, which we just talked about with its DNA. You have transport systems. You have transport systems moving molecules in and out. You have transport systems moving molecules in the cell itself. In fact, the cell is so complicated. I say simple as kind of a sarcastic because it is considered to be simple compared to everything else. And it is so complex that you can spend an entire scientific career studying one little aspect of one little section of the cell. And when you're done, after your entire career, have more questions than when you started. And they want to say that that's no big deal, that design is nothing, that design is irrelevant, that life can just occur all the time spontaneously anywhere. Those are statements of ignorance. Yeah, another video not going to work, sorry. Jeez. This is the last one. This is a video of bamboo. Bamboo grows 3 foot in 24 hours. You thought dandelions grew fast. 3 feet in 24 hours. The biological sophistication of being able to do that is, I would say, beyond comprehension. 3 feet in 24 hours. I'll not wait for the next slide to come up. Okay, in your body, we talked about the chromosomes. Chromosomes are in the nucleus. I'm a geneticist. I've spent my entire scientific career studying genetics. We thought, way back when, we thought we understood genetics. Until the last 15 years, in other words, until the 21st century, then we recognized we didn't understand genetics at all. It's not that what we knew was wrong, it's what we knew was so minor and incomplete. What we understand now is that if the chromosomes in your body were these volumes of books printed on 20 pages, this entire set of books printed on 20 pages, and I'm not talking about extremely small print that you got to read with a microscope. So I'm talking about normal print. This would be analogous to your chromosome. The way you would read it is you would read it left to right, top to bottom, the way you would normally read, but then you turn it over. How many books do you know can you turn it over and read? I don't know a single one. But it doesn't stop there. Then you fold 2 pages together and read it again. Fold 2 pages together and read it again. And read it again and read it again. Until when you're done with that, on those 20 pages is the entire 6 volumes of this book. That's the way your chromosomes are written. They're written at such a high level of sophistication, there's not a scientist in the world that knows how to read that book. There's no one in the world that knows how to read that book. And if you ask them where that book came from, you're going to get the most foolish answer of all. It wrote itself. Excuse me? That makes no sense. You're going to tell me a book that is so sophisticated that we, the most brilliant man in the world, the 10 most brilliant men in the world, have no idea how to read that book. You're going to tell me it wrote itself? I'm going to call up the doctor and say this person needs some serious treatment because that's just flat insane. But that's what you're going to get told because remember, the world wants you to believe anything but God's truth. This book, 20 pages, has been written. It's your chromosomes. And they didn't write themselves. What's that tell you about God? It tells you that our God is so intelligent that we can't even figure out the first step of his intelligence. That's the real God. A God that isn't that isn't a God worth anything. Our God is so intelligent that he can write this book and it's like child's play. And yet we don't even have a clue on how to read that book. You've heard of, in DNA, you've heard of genes, right? G-E-N-E, a gene. You know what? We don't even know what a gene is anymore. We thought we knew, but now we recognize a gene is so much more complicated that we didn't know what it is anymore. Now, we still talk about genes because we don't know what else to talk about. That's all we got. But when we tell you this is a gene, our fingers are crossed because it's not really. We just don't know what it is because it's way too complicated. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Dan Brown. He writes novels, but in the novels, he'll then say, okay, this is fiction, but the facts are true. Which, of course, Dan Brown wouldn't know a fact of a bit. They're not true. He wrote Da Vinci Code. Da Vinci Code was so bad, even History Channel made fun of it. His news book's called Origin. Now, he would not admit it, but it's very obvious in reading that book that the point is he's trying to get you to buy all the nonsense I was just refuting. So in your life, remember that you're going to get bombarded with a lot of misinformation, a lot of silliness. And this book represents some of that. And you likely will have some friends that read this, oh, you got to read this, it really explains all this. Well, first off, remind them it's just fiction. And second off, remind them there's a lot of silliness in this book. For example, the main character in the book says that Darwin's theory of evolution is extremely well established. No, it's not. It's an invisible rope. Right? Because it's based on scientific observed fact. No, it's not. It's an invisible rope. The simple fact that people are stepping over it doesn't make it an observable fact. Okay? And clearly illustrates how organisms evolve and adapt to their environment over time. No, it doesn't. It doesn't explain anything. See, so already he's trying to get his reader to accept this, and it's all nonsense. Now, one of the other characters of the book will say, well, is it? I've read that there's a lot of books, I've seen a lot of books that argue Darwin was entirely wrong. Another character chimes in, yeah, there's been more than 50 titles published in the last 2 decades. Well, maybe Dan Brown owns about 50, but I could probably name 500 just off the top of my head. So it's not just 50. Okay, some better than others. But the idea already, what he's doing by saying 50, is he's trying to marginalize. Oh, there's been a few books. But that's not that big a deal. It's been a lot of books written by a lot of very smart people. Okay? Then he names a few, what Darwin got wrong, defeating Darwinism, Darwin's black box, Darwin on trial, Darwin's dark side of Charles Darwin. And then Langdon, the main character, says, yeah, I've actually read 2 of them. Ooh, 2 of them. Yeah, so I'm really well versed in this. Yeah. Maybe that's it. Dan Brown would have read 2 of them, or maybe skimmed the titles of 2 of them or something. Then what he says is, I can't speak for all of them. Well, really, he can't probably speak for any of them, because I can't speak for all of them. But in the ones I've read, they all have fundamental Christian viewpoint, which of course already see that negates. If they have a fundamental Christian viewpoint, then that means they're not worth listening to. Again, that's the world speaking. Okay? And one went as far as suggest that the earth's fossil record is placed there by God in order to test our faith. Now, I've heard that, but I guarantee you none of those books argue that. There isn't a single book by any creation scientist that says that. And in fact, I'm not even sure if I can find any book by anybody that says that. So I don't know where he got that. I don't know what book he read. I think he's just making that up myself. Okay? But why would he point that out? Because again, see, he's trying to make fun of. He doesn't engage intellectually in what those other books he lists say. He just tries to make fun of it, being dismissive, like, oh, they make all these stupid claims. They don't make any of those claims. This is what you're going to be bombarded with, is this kind of approach. This is what's going to influence your friends. This is what you're going to be facing as you move into adulthood, as you move into college and into your professional career. You got to think through. You got to understand what it's really saying and understand why is it taking that approach. Because it's trying to dismiss. It's not really being intellectually honest. It's just trying to dismiss. Okay. Take home from all of this, I am a Christian. I would challenge you to learn about your Creator. You can be more like Him. And with that, thank you. Do you have any questions? I don't know how much time we have. We're over time, almost right on time. Yes. 5 minutes. Can we get 5 minutes worth of questions? No, because we ask the question, and that means that we have to sit here long. I know how students work. Yes, yes, yes.
Have you ever come across a college student since you worked at the colleges or universities where they actually been treated significantly different because of their Christian worldview?
I have not, because I was protected. But I have many colleagues who talk about their experiences where they were, some even being denied able to finish their PhDs because they were Christian, because they were Creationists. But as a professor, I was protected of those students. One thing I did have, and this is one of the great blessings to me when I was a professor, is of course in a secular, a state university, I couldn't talk about creation, I couldn't even talk about Christ. But God blessed in such a way they knew I was a Christian even without asking me. And I had several students over my career come into my office and say, Dr. Anderson, I can tell you're a Christian, I have questions. That was always a great blessing. One of them even an atheist. And she said, I have several questions I want to ask you. And she was smart. We spent hours talking. She said, you have given me so much to think about. So it goes both ways. You know, it's a tough road. But others of us have gone ahead. So there is a path, and God will preserve. God won't be short on His promise. But it's not easy. Jesus didn't say it was easy. Any other questions? Anybody wanting to go into genetics? Nobody wants to go into genetics. Somebody over there? Where? That we got the tissue from? Well, we got tissue from both the horn of a Triceratops and also from a vertebra of a Thessaliosaurus. Now, other people have gotten tissue from a T-Rex and from a hadrosaur. So, and other people have found proteins in other fossils as well. So it's not just us. It's not just 1 or 2 labs. It's a lot of labs now that have found this stuff. Yes.
I have one more question.
Yes. All right.
If you were going to give high school students heading to college any piece of advice to stay strong in their faith in
Read the Bible. Read the Bible. Start and end with that. Now, number 2 is think. Think, think, think. And the reason I say that is because there are a number of people out there today that were my contemporaries. And they talk about how when they got to college, how it just sapped their faith, how it just hit them and knocked them over, and it just had all this effect on them. And I'm like, why? What class did you take that I didn't take? I took those classes too. See, it's not about the brain. It's not about the edge. It's about the heart. You believe what you're wanting to believe. Oh, I'm willing to believe that we came from stardust, even though there's not a shred of scientific evidence behind it. Discern, 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 discern. I took 2 evolution classes as an undergraduate. And I'm sitting there studying for my finals. And I took them both same semester, so I got all the notes for both of them right there. I'm studying for the finals, and I'm looking at those notes. And I can remember this to this day, because this is what so impressed me, emotionally. I'm thinking, this is it? This is all they've got right here? There's nothing there. It's all invisible rope. It's all conjecture and supposition and maybe and possibly and could be. I was a stronger creationist when I finished my doctorate than when I started as a freshman. You can be too if you discern, read your Bible, and study, study, study. I probably should have studied more. It's not easy to, and I'm not in a video game. Oh, that would be so, you get away from home, you don't play video games all the time. That'll kill your college career. Don't do that. Don't do that. Thank you so much.